From euphoria to disaster and back, 2009 has been a wild ride financially. It doesn't stop there, though. Today, being both the end of the year and the end of the decade, a decade that's being called the lost decade. Joe Krier, president of Krier Wealth Management, is here to talk about some of the highlights and what's coming for the next year. Good morning to you. Who's called lost decade? That sounds so stark.
Yeah, you know how we always say this time of year, it's hard to believe it's already Christmas. Well, this time we're saying it's hard to believe it's already been 10 years since everybody was freaked out about the millennium. And if you go back and look at the investment markets, they were actually higher 10 years ago than they are today.
And you're right, a lot of us were paranoid about the millennium, what it would bring, and computer problems and financial problems.
Sure, and everyone woke up on January 2nd and saw that the lights were on and the computers still worked, and then they all got happy about things, but that actually only lasted for about 3 months.
All right, let's delve into why they're dubbing this the lost decade, because there were some pretty big financial issues out there. First, let's start with a dot-com bubble that burst in March of 2000.
You know, if you look at it, it's kind of like a football game that 0-0, if you turn it on at the end of the game, you could say, well, nothing happened during the game. This is a list of some of the major events that we've lived through, and everybody remembers the terrorist attacks, of course, and that led to economic decline that finally bottomed out in 2002. Then we saw technology rising, Facebook, iPod, all these other things literally did change the world as we know it, and global growth, the BRIC nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, taking off, and they are still changing
doing well, are
the global economic landscape. You know, there's some questions about where China's headed and are they creating their own bubble. That's probably true. But for now, they're growing while we're still shrinking.
And then, of course, 2008 to still today, and some people speculate into 2010, we had the real estate bubble that burst, and we have seen what has happened as a result of that.
By far, the biggest financial factor of the entire decade was the real estate bubble bursting. We're going to be paying the price for that for some time to come.
For some time. Some people say for decades. Do you believe that?
I don't know about decades, but, you know, when we start to look at some of the big issues that are facing us that we're hanging on, unemployment is one of the largest, and that's going to linger, and a lot of people could say unemployment and prove it that it might be above 10% for 5 years to come.
Yeah, so we just looked at the decade. Let's look specifically now at 2009. You mentioned unemployment rate above 10%. We've got a $1.4 trillion budget deficit.
Right,
is that the largest it's ever been?
It is. Last year, or in 2008, it was $498 billion, so it's up 3 times. And a lot of that was, of course, to save the failing banking system. One of the big questions going forward is going to be paying that back. But unemployment is out there, the bank and real estate problems that continue. And then, of course, the market, in the face of all this bad news, did start to rally on March 9th, and that rally continues right through yesterday afternoon.
And then let's not forget Madoff and Friends. Who was the other one? Alan Stanford out in Texas, the billionaire there.
Sure, and a bunch of smaller names out there. But these guys did prove that you know, scandal can be institutionalized, and on a $50 billion scale, no one ever thought someone could get away with something that big.
So what do you see for 2010, Joe?
Good question. You know, the crystal ball is kind of in the shop right now, but, you know.
It's splintered. It's been thrown across the wall.
Yeah, it's scratched up a little bit, but, you know, we know healthcare and different policies coming out of Washington are probably going to rule where we are in January and February. They want to get this deal done. Then they're going to have to start talking about paying for that $1.4 trillion budget deficit. So that's going to mean maybe tax changes, different things like that, or even just pulling money out of the economy. And in the background, everybody's looking for the economy to actually recover, so a lot of these people that are out of work can start heading back in on Monday morning.
And whether it does or not is anybody's bet at this point.
It
seems like a bet.
It's a pretty tough call. There's a lot of optimism out there right now. I'm kind of surprised at how widespread the optimism is among market watchers and economists alike as we go into 2010.
And then I've heard a lot of other people being Debbie Downers about 2010 too. So
certainly a possibility. Yep.
I feel like I'm in a relationship with a volatile partner. Aren't you? When you try to put your mind around what's going on with the economy, you never know. One day it's good, one day it's bad, and you don't know where it's coming from.
Yep. You have to be prepared. You have to have your eyes wide open, and you have to be ready to change your approach to things as the market changes.
Okay, Joe. Thanks so much.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.